Happy spring, everyone. Welcome to another virtual program brought to you by Pamunkey Regional Library. My name's Ace, and I work out at the King and Queen Branch Library. And today we're going to learn how to build an easy, cheap, compostable container garden. This is just one of many ways that you can build a container garden. Um, the cool thing about these is they're really versatile. You can have them on your patio. If you don't have all this land like I do behind me, then these things will easily suffice and feed you all spring, summer, and fall. With tomatoes, herbs, whatever you decide to put in it, it can grow a good amount of food. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about are the supplies that you're going to need. And the one thing I'm going to say about the supplies is you can make this as cheap or as expensive as you see fit. I'm trying to stay on the cheap side here just to show you what's possible. We did buy some of our supplies, and the rest we used what we had on hand. For example, the one thing you're going to need is a container or storage container or tote. This one is kind of the more expensive one. It's a Sterilite, and it was $10 at Lowe's, I think. And a lot of people just have these on hand, so feel free to use what you have on hand. This is kind of a medium-sized one. They go from like 18 gallons to maybe 40 gallons. I probably wouldn't go too far above 40, just because as it gets bigger, it gets harder to move. So that's another thing I'm going to say while we're at it, is you want to kind of build this thing as close as you can to where you're going to put it in its final resting place, because once you get all of the materials, the soil, and its water, these things can become really heavy. So this is just the regular tote container. It usually comes with a lid, and you can decide to use the lid or not. What a lot of people do is just put it on the lid, so once you water it, it just kind of acts as another vessel to hold the in. And if you're putting this on like a wood patio or something, if you keep on watering it, it can kind of get moldy and gross under the container. So it is kind of good to keep it on the lid if you're kind of going that route. With the container, you do want to make sure that it's got the number 5 triangle on it, and that is good to go. The one thing you want to look out for is the number 3 triangle. You don't want to use that, and this has the base made with recycled resin. This was made in USA, and it's Sterilite, so and it's nice and heavy duty, so that's why I chose this one. And again, this was about $10. And another thing is, some people think that these will crumble, but as long as you have soil in here and you're watering it properly, and even if it's out in the sun, they will last up. This should easily last that 3 to 5 year range. So the next thing, another really important thing that you're going to need is soil. And I decided to, I didn't really have any soil on hand. You don't particularly want to use like garden soil. It just can be really compact, and you might just run into issues later down the road. If that's all you have on hand, then go for it, definitely. Again, you can make it as cheap as you like. So this is organic. I prefer organic soil. This is just Harvest Organic. I think this was about $7 at Lowe's as well. So it's not too bad. And then you will be getting a ton of food out of this as well. So it will be good to invest as much as you can into your soil, because that's kind of the most important part of growing any vegetables, is all of that life and microbes and all the good stuff in your soil that will eventually be in your body. So this is Harvest Organics raised bed natural mix. Another thing that's pretty cool, and why we're calling this a compostable container garden, is I have a PVC pipe here, and this was a 4-foot PVC pipe, and I just cut it in half with a Sawzall and drilled holes in it all around it. And what this is going to be is we're going to stick this in here, and all of your leftover kitchen scraps, vegetables, all of that good stuff that is just going to get tossed in the trash and go in the landfill. Instead, you can start putting it into your container garden. So we're just going to put our food scraps in here, and they're going to go down to the bottom. And then what these holes are meant for is all of your worms and good stuff in the soil are going to be able to go into these holes, eat that food, and then come out in the holes and poop it into your soil. And that's the really good stuff that feeds. It's called I think vermicompost, is like worm droppings, and that's all the good stuff that feeds your plant and makes them grow nice and good. So this is optional. You don't need this to build a container garden. One other option is to just tuck your vegetable scraps under your soil, and at the end of the video we'll show the different methods of using your food scraps for your container garden instead of throwing it in your trash. So this is the PVC pipe, and this is just a 4-inch PVC pipe. You can get 3-inch. The 4-inch just kind of holds a little bit more food. We eat a lot of vegetables, so this thing gets filled up pretty quick. And then speaking of food scraps, we have some right here. This is just our composting container, and then pretty much you can throw everything in here. We throw coffee, the filters of the coffee, any type of vegetable that we eat. On here it says compost no, so you don't want to throw really any oil, cow, fish, chicken, cat poop, yogurt, pork in here. I'm just going to kind of keep it to vegetables. All of those things can, the cow, like milk and oil, kind of can breed diseases and nasty stuff in your soil. But if some of it make it in there, I wouldn't fret too much. I have thrown some meat and milk and yogurt and stuff into the compost. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need is just regular garden debris, and that could be anything ranging from leaves, branches, wood chips, pretty much anything you have laying around in your garden or yard. And I just went around and gathered some stuff. So it's just kind of small twigs. They can even be big. And what these are going to act as is a drainage on the bottom of our container. So we're going to stick these on the bottom and then put the soil on the top. So it'll just give a nice, good drainage for the bottom of our container. So I have some pretty much mainly branches in here, and I also have some hardwood chips as well. And this is just kind of nice to kind of layer them throughout your container garden. And some other things that you can use are little styrofoam peanuts. You can use those, or even shredded paper, shredded newspaper. Most of our ink is soy-based, so it is okay to put newspaper and different shredded paper, different mail that you get that you're just going to throw away. And this is kind of the cheaper way to go about it. Another thing you can use as drainage is rocks. If you had a bunch of rocks around your yard, you can use those. We just don't have that, and we have this on hand, so this is what we're going to use. Okay, so now we're going to start building our compostable container garden. So one thing you want to make sure when you get this is that you do have drainage holes in it. It is very important. So you don't want the water, once you water it, just sitting at the bottom. You want it to be able to go somewhere. What I chose is to put some holes about a half an inch to an inch up the side of the wall instead of on the bottom, because in the summertime sometimes we don't get long periods of rain. It is nice to have this little reservoir on the bottom here that will be our wood chips just filled with water, and then it will kind of just wick up through the soil over time, and it will just let you water your garden a little less. And another cool thing about this, the drainage holes on the side, is if you can put it by maybe a small garden that you have, and you can just tilt it a little bit, and then all of your excess water will go into wherever you want it to, just so you're wasting as little water as possible. So these drainage holes are really important. You can put them in the side, in the bottom too if you want. It's just whatever works with your situation. And then this is just a 3/8 drill bit. The size isn't too big of a deal. If you have a smaller one, just make more holes, and you can even go a little bit bigger than this. And okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is start layering the garden. And the first thing we're gonna put in here, and I got my mom helping me today, and we're gonna put all of our debris that we found around the garden. We're just gonna stack it in here. These are just regular branches. And then if you want to use less soil, just use a little bit more of garden debris. So we got that, and then that was our branches, and then we're gonna use our wood chips just to kind of give us a little bit extra room. There we go. And here you can see on the bottom, so it's just about quarter way filled. I probably wouldn't go any more than about halfway, but yep, you can just fill it as much as you like. This is kind of like the free material, and you can bulk it up as much as you like. So first we're gonna, before actually we get started too, is we want to make sure that we put, if you choose to go this route, our PVC pipe in, and make sure that it already has your holes in it, so the worms and all the good stuff can be able to access it. Yeah. And then we're just gonna put our garden soil into it. And again, this is just regular raised bed mix. There's many different types of soil out there. If you're not particular about it being organic, that's no fret either. Everyone has their choices. It's got a really nice smell to it. And then we just want to fill that up about halfway. Okay, so we moved the camera just so you can kind of get a better angle of what's kind of going on in here. So we got our debris on the bottom, and we're just kind of layering this. I'm not doing too many layers this time. You can do like branches, soil, branches, kind of that way. I'm just kind of trying to keep this as easy as possible. And just put my branches and wood chips on the bottom, the paper if you have it, stones, and then the soil. And then what I'm going to do next is grab your kitchen scraps if you have them, and I'm just going to put a little bit of this as a layer. This is about half filled. Another thing I want to say is this doesn't have to be completely filled up to the top. Even right now would be sufficient enough if that's all you have. It can be halfway filled. I do kind of like my containers filled a little bit, just because the more soil you have, the deeper it is, just a little better that the plants grow. But whatever works in your situation is best. So I'm going to sprinkle some of these kitchen scraps. I got mainly lettuce, coffee, onions, some flowers, just all different oranges, all different stuff in here. I'm just going to put this a little bit, got some eggs in there, avocado. Put some of that in there, and that'll kind of get the microbes and all of the good stuff going in the middle of the soil. So another thing that is also optional, but can possibly help it, is introducing some native microbes from just your lawn, or if you already have a small garden, or maybe a friend has a small garden, getting just a handful or two of their native garden soil and also throwing it in here. In about 1 cubic foot of really good soil, there can be more microbes than there are people living on this earth. So that just shows you how alive your soil is, and how important it is to grow nice, healthy, nutrient-dense vegetables. So I got that in there. I got the native garden soil, and then you can layer. We can put some paper on there if you like. I don't have any paper on hand. And then we're just gonna put the rest with garden soil, probably about 1 inch or 2 below the top. want to kind of even that out. And it looks like one bag, and this was 2 cubic foot. It was a 2 cubic foot bag, and that fills up this 27-gallon tote perfectly. Got that. We just kind of jam this in there, wedge it. And remember, this is already kind of heavy. Once you water, it's going to become very, very heavy and going to be very difficult to move. And then also the cheaper containers, they will, once it gets heavy and you pick it up, it can start to crack and all that. So you just want to keep all that in mind, and just try to build it as close to the site that you're wanting its final resting place. And then maybe even instead of picking it up, you can drag it along as well if you need to. So that about does it for that part. We got our layered it with our drainage holes at the bottom. So once we water it, water can come out of the side instead of staying there. And then we got our soil and our food scraps and all of that. One thing that is nice is if you have maybe a couple worms, if you can dig up a couple worms and even tuck them into the soil, that can kind of get things going. If you have this sitting on grass, believe it or not, worms will actually kind of find their way into here. You'll see them, they'll crawl up the side at night, just looking for something to eat, and will go through your holes or even come over the top of your lid into your soil. And then also maybe some of the kitchen scraps that you put in here might have some worms in it as well. Okay, so this is pretty much our final product. From here, it's ready to plant. But I wanted to show kind of how to use this. So you pretty much just get your kitchen scraps, and it's usually better before they're all mushy like the ones that I have here. And we're just gonna stuff this in here, and you can use coffee, tea bags, banana peels. It is sometimes better if you kind of the smaller it is, the easier it will break down, and the easier the worms will have easier time breaking it down. You can stick paper in here, just whatever you have on hand that's extra. And instead of all of this going into the landfill, it's going to go back into your food and eventually back into your body. So you can pretty much fill this as high as you want. We're just going to start small. We don't have a whole lot left here. I'm just going to stick this in. Yeah, that's one way. If you didn't go with the PVC, that's no problem. Another thing you can do is just tuck back some of the soil you have here and just make a little mound, and then just dump your kitchen scraps in there, and then just cover it back up. And then eventually that'll break down all the microbes and the worms, break that down. So don't worry if you don't have the PVC pipe or don't go that way. You can still use all of your food scraps and use it as a composting container garden. So that concludes how to build an easy compostable container garden. I hope you learned a little bit, and if you have any questions, feel free to stop by the King and Queen Library, shoot me an email, leave a comment in our YouTube section or on Facebook, and I'll try to answer any questions if you have any. And if you end up building one, I'd love to see a picture of it, all your delicious vegetables growing. And remember, you can use this for herbs, even flowers, vegetables, obviously, tomatoes fit in here. So pretty much the sky's the limit, and thanks for joining along. Hope to see you soon.